Emotional content is filmed on Whadjuk Noongar land. This podcast acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of country. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. This episode contains discussions on infertility, pregnancy and abortion that may be distressing to some listeners. Please take care when listening. For immediate support, contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. Additional resources for miscarriage, stillbirth and infant loss are available on our website at emotionalcontent.com.au. Come for the stories, stay for the connection. I'm your host, Amy Jane Brand, and this is your weekly dose of emotional content. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to this week's episode of Emotional Content. Today, I thought I would talk to you about something that affects so many people, specifically women in their 30s, and depending on your culture, it can be even earlier than that. We are talking about all things having children and the expectations that are held upon us by society, family, friends, work colleagues, and basically any other human that has an opinion on it. As most of you know, I am 34. I turned 35 this year, and I have made the conscious decision to have kids later. There are many reasons as to why, and today I will be unpacking all of it. I would like to be a mother one day, don't get me wrong, but I want to do it on my own timeline, and I don't want to be forced to do something by anybody. This is just my feelings and my perspective. I'm not here to debate, and not everyone will agree with me on this, but I just felt like it was time for me to talk about it. It's a decision and a subject that I have felt very conflicted on, and my views around it have changed over the years, surprisingly, because at one point I thought that I never wanted children. So for me to say that I do want to be a mother one day is a big shift for me. I did put a trigger warning at the start of this episode, but I am going to say again that if you are struggling with any sort of infertility, pregnancy loss, or pressure from toxic family dynamics around children, then this episode might not be for you. And I completely understand why you might want to give this one a miss. However, if you do feel like joining the conversation, I'd absolutely love to have you here, and I am sending you so much love on your journey. Okay, so in saying that, let's get into today's episode. So a little bit about my upbringing. If you don't know, I am a child of 4. I have 3 older siblings. They are half siblings, but I only ever see them as full blood siblings. They have a different father to me, and they are quite significantly older than me as well. So I am the baby of the family. And we also moved away from our extended family in the UK when I was very little as well. So I have only ever grown up around basically my immediate family, which has given me no real exposure to many kids. I don't know how to change a diaper. I do have my niece and nephew that I've had some time with, but I have not really had that much exposure to children on a regular basis. And holding my friends' kids always feels really daunting. Don't get me wrong, I do love kids. They're absolutely adorable, but I just haven't had the exposure to them or grown up with them much in my life, which is a very big contrast compared to my partner Frank, who comes from a big extended Italian family who spend a lot of time together and who have a lot of children around. So he's babysit before, knows how to change a nappy, is very good with kids, absolutely loves kids. When it comes to previous relationships prior to dating Frank now, I was never inspired by the idea of having children with those people. They, at the time, would have made really terrible fathers, except for one of them. In fact, something that is quite personal, I suppose, I didn't really expect to be talking about. When it came to my last boyfriend, my ex, I got to the point where we had been together for almost 6 years and the talk of marriage was coming up, but it was something that I said I didn't want. I knew that the relationship was breaking down and it would have taken so much. It would have been impossible for things to ever work between us. However, at the time, when that was kind of coming up in conversation and I was like, ugh, don't want to get married to you, the thought of potentially getting pregnant to him was really scary as well, because he never wanted children. And I was very nervous at the thought of becoming pregnant and having to go through an abortion. I have never had an abortion and I've never fallen pregnant before. And the thought of being in a long-term relationship that was financially stable, knowing that I would need to be going through an abortion in my late 20s was a real wake-up call to the stability and the future success of that relationship. It was very obvious that relationship was not meant for me, because if I fell pregnant now, I would have the child. That is why I've always been so careful with contraception. I'm extremely careful with it. I always have been. I would say I would put that down to being 12 years old and watching my sister give birth to my niece. She had a home birth, no painkillers, and did it in a birthing pool in the comfort of her own home with a midwife. And when I tell you that that was the best contraceptive education I could have ever received, I seriously mean it. It's funny because my sister was like, no, I want AJ to be there. This will be really good for her. And to be honest, it was a really good experience because I feel like it made me respect the consequences of what happens when you have sex. At that age, it was something that I really needed to see, because I feel like if I didn't see that, I wouldn't have had the knowledge of, what you go through and the sacrifice you put yourself through to have a baby. I've never taken it lightly. Not to say that people who haven't seen that don't take it seriously, but at that age, 12 years old, to witness that and be in the presence of that, it gave me a newfound respect for motherhood. It gave me a new understanding of the sacrifice. My sister was in labour for over 20 hours. It was her first and only birth. And to do that as a first-time mother is not only scary, but it takes a lot of mental and physical strength. It gave me a whole new understanding for what it meant to become a mother. And I think that's why I was so on top of making sure I never fell pregnant. I am by no means against abortion, by the way. I just want to put that out there in case anybody gets that twisted. Women should be entitled to do whatever they want with their bodies. However, being in a relationship for that long and then knowing that I would be pushed to abort a child even if I didn't want to, was not a situation that I wanted to be in. So I think when the choice was taken away from me, I really started considering, maybe I did actually want to have a baby, but I just wasn't in the right environment to. It was confusing. Everyone I had dated after my first boyfriend was not interested in children until I met Frank. However, having that option taken away from me made me rethink the whole equation, because when somebody tells me I need to do something or not to do something, I push back on it naturally. Like, I don't want to be told what to do. It's in my nature. I never dealt well with being told what to do in school. I like to question everything. I like to know my rights. That's just me as a person. So when you tell me, no, you would need to abort if you got pregnant, that was not a nice situation for me to be in. That's quite personal information, but that is exactly what happened. So I think also because of my career and the industry that I have been in for over a decade now, I have never really had people question me too much about whether I'm having children or not. I've also been around a lot of young creators and musicians, and it's never really been on the radar of the people that I have been surrounded by. So I've been fortunate enough to not have to deal with the scrutiny, the judgment, the questions, the opinions of other people. The societal norms have not been pushed onto me in regards to my biological clock or when I'm planning on having a kid. I'm also very, very fortunate that I have not had a family that has pushed those type of expectations onto me. I know that that is not the same for a lot of people. And I do wonder if people are looking at me on social media, even like yourselves, and wondering, when is she going to have kids? I very rarely get questioned by followers about it as well. Maybe it's because I come across younger than I am. I don't know. Or just the career path that I have gone down. I've also never been around boyfriends' families that have been poking about when I'm going to produce a child for them. Until I got into Frank's family, I do feel like there are some generational expectations there of kids. There is a lot of kids in this family. So I think this is the first time I've actually felt a sense of not like pressure, but a potential expectation there to produce a baby. So it's really only just started showing up for me. Not that they have pushed anything on me in a negative way, but it's definitely something that they would be excited for. So it's all very new for me. I'm very thankful that I have not had the stress of this throughout my career. However, I think if I grew up here in Perth and I stayed around the same people, it would have been a very different story. I would have kind of been like a bit of an outcast for not having children yet. I think losing my father has also made me extremely picky when it comes to selecting who would be a good dad and who wouldn't. Going through the trauma of losing my father at a young age, seeing how it affected my mum and my family was something that really shaped me as a person. And it's not an experience that I would want my future child to have to go through. The grief of losing a parent that did not prioritise their health for the sake of themselves and their own family was an immense amount of pain for him to leave us with. So I have always had it in my mind that my potential future baby daddy needs to take their mental and physical health seriously and needs to want to look after themselves. I don't want to be with somebody that doesn't practice self-care on all levels and doesn't respect their own health or has any sort of addictions and things like that. So yeah, I've been very picky in my head without actually realizing. And I'm very glad that I did not fall pregnant with any of them because look, I don't think I would have gone through with it. Speaking on contraception, I was on the pill very early. I briefly spoke about it on my plastic surgery episode, talking about how I got on the pill initially wanting boobs. That didn't work. However, I was sexually active from a young age and I was on the pill for about 10 years. The pill started making me emotionally very unstable. It was affecting me really badly. And I was actually, hopefully this isn't TMI, but I was actually having chronic issues with thrush. And I had never suffered with thrush much prior to being on the pill. By this point, I was on the pill for 10 years. And I kept every month just having reoccurring thrush, which was not only painful, but also a head fuck because I'm just like, anyone that's had thrush knows how uncomfortable it is. So that kept happening and I was going back and forth with the doctor and I said, hey, this isn't normal. It's starting out of nowhere. I've been dealing with this for the last 6 months. And they never once said, oh, it could be the pill. Like never, ever, ever. And obviously I didn't think it was the pill either because I had been on it for so long. Like, why am I suddenly going to get issues with it now? Anyway, I was doing some research and coming from somebody that was crying every single day, I was up and down like a yo-yo with my emotions. I mean, I have ADHD, which is also a big contribution to that. But this was off the scale. Like I was crying every single day. So eventually I decided, you know what, I'm going to go off the pill. And from that moment onwards, I never got thrush again. The pill was the main source of that. And since seeing other doctors afterwards, they all said, yeah, the pill can do that. So the pill was completely fucking my pH and my hormones. After that, I had to get really, really smart on always using condoms. They're not everybody's cup of tea, okay? I understand that. But for somebody like myself that was really intent on not getting pregnant, I made sure to have them. And not that this is really the episode for it, but I will throw this in here. The best condoms that you can use if you're in the same position as myself is Hex by Lilo. A lot of people don't know about those condoms because they're by a sex toy manufacturer. But if you know about Lilo toys, they're very much like upmarket luxury sex toys. And they do some really excellent condoms. They are latex, I'm pretty sure. So if you are allergic to latex or get irritated by it, these might not be for you. However, they are really excellent condoms, especially if you need bigger sizes. They obviously have like a range of sizes, but the bigger sizes are really excellent. excellent. And then there's also the obvious skins ones that you can get, from most pharmacies, chemists. But I do really recommend Hex if you are in the same boat as me. Even if you're a single chook, I would totally carry some of those condoms around with you. Like, the Hex condoms give them no real excuse, in my opinion. On top of that, I also track my periods and see when I'm fertile with the Natural Cycles app. Yeah, Natural Cycles. I've been using that for the last 2 years, and that tells me when my green light is on, and I work around that too. So I've got 2 layers of protection with condoms and that, and it's also really helped me understand my cycle as well. So if you're like me and either don't want to or can't use hormonal birth control, this is the way that I'm doing it. And I feel like if the guy is a good person, they will respect your wishes and wrap that shit up. Fuck the excuse of, oh, I don't like the way it feels, because they can not only wear better quality condoms, but they can also put lube on their dick before putting the condom on as well, which also creates a more pleasurable experience. I think it's all about finding the right size condoms and the quality of the condom. That was absolutely completely off topic to the notes I have here. But if that information was helpful to you girls, you're welcome, because it was something I had to navigate on my own. Nobody really told me what was a good quality condom or not when I started. So yeah, watching my sister give birth like that was a real light bulb moment where I knew that I did not want to become a mother until I was truly ready. And also keep in mind, guys, I was very chaotic. Like, I wasn't stable. I had gone through a lot, especially with the bullying, losing dad, shitty relationships. I was not in a place where I was ever thinking, you know what, I feel really safe to have a child. So that's why it just wasn't on my radar, period. However, when I met Frank, everything changed. And I was so shocked at having the feelings of potentially wanting to have a baby. It was very new to me, and it was scary because I've also felt quite a level of resentment towards men not having to sacrifice as much as us when it comes to having children. It can be every single sacrifice you can think of, even down to career, down to our bodies, the potential things that can happen to our bodies or what we go through, the fact that you can even die from giving birth. Like, that's a reality as well. There's so many things that we sacrifice that men don't. Also, going through being pregnant is not a walk in the park. Some people absolutely love it. Other people have a really hard time. And I'm scared that I'm going to be one of the people that has a very difficult time. So there's a level of resentment that I feel like it's just such bullshit how much we have to go through compared to them. So that has also been a part of my pushback to wanting to have children. To be honest, getting really vulnerable with you, when Frank and I first got together, we actually had quite a big argument about this subject. Frank spoke frequently about wanting kids, and he's definitely made to be a father. I can absolutely see that and feel that even when I first met him. He's naturally dreamt of always having a family and providing for his family. It's something that he has always wanted, which is a beautiful thing. Whereas I've always been more focused on career, traveling, and not settling down in one place. I've always been on the road and had a very different idea of what my life would be like. And it was quite scary going into this relationship, not knowing if I fully wanted to commit to becoming a mother, because I do see it as a commitment. Like, everything changes once you become a mum. Yes, you can integrate a child into your life, but the commitment to becoming a mother is real. Like, you are stressing out 24/7 about this human that you have to look after. It's not like getting a cat that we have that we can leave for a certain amount of hours each day. It's like a full-blown 24/7 commitment. So, things change. A lot of shit changes. A lot can change for the better. I'm not saying that it's changing negatively, but it's the fact for me of having such a major shift in my life and committing to that shift. And when we were having this argument, I remember saying to him, like, my purpose in life is not to procreate for a man. And I was so strong on that. And it was nerve-wracking because we both really wanted to be with each other. And it's kind of like, well, what if I'm not able to produce a baby? Because I've never fallen pregnant before. Granted, I've always been very careful, but it has been in the back of my head if I am actually capable of getting pregnant, because majority of my friends have had pregnancy scares or they've had abortions, and I have never fallen pregnant. I don't even know what it feels like to be pregnant. So a little part of me does worry that if I wasn't able to give him what he wanted, even if I wanted to, what does that mean for us? So we did have to go through quite a big discussion on that lasted quite a while. It was something that was quite intense for us to navigate, especially for myself, who has come from relationships where that was never on the radar. We were never talking about the idea of babies. So this was all very new to me. The other thing that you guys probably don't know is I am 5 years older than Frank. So yes, I know what you're thinking, cougar, slay. However, because of the age gap and my age compared to him, he's 30 this year, very soon actually. But that was another thing that was a concern for me too. The fact that I'm older than him, so he wants them, I'm older, and the biological clock starts to tick. That I had never heard that clock ticking before. I'd never heard the biological clock starting to, tap into the back of my head and be like, it's coming up to that time. You better start cooking one up. Like, what do you mean? I've never had to worry about this. I never thought I was going to be worrying about it. Yeah, life threw me a bit of a curveball with that. I was not expecting to ever be considering having a baby. I wasn't. My priorities have been very different to the people I grew up with. I left Perth when I was 20 years old, and I was traveling, living in all different states, having all different kinds of experiences over those 10 years that I was away from Perth. And I loved the fact that I could pick up and move wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted. It was something that I thrived on. So I was never surrounded by people that were entering motherhood or were already mothers. It was very rare that I basically was around anyone who had kids. Once I was on the East Coast, when I was in LA, it was very much not in the picture. There was not kids popping up in the scene that I was in. It just wasn't really much of a thing. So I honestly didn't think about it too much. When I came back to Perth 10 years later, the people I went to school with were on their second to third child. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like it was such a, not slap in the face, but it was such a realization that I was like, shit, while I've just been doing all of this, everyone's kind of, settled down and made families. And it wasn't something that I looked at and went, oh, I wish I had that. It was just kind of like a shit, this is what's happened, and I haven't been here for it. I haven't been around it. I haven't experienced much baby stuff at all. And then everyone is like well deep into that next chapter of their life. So that was a big realization that I have chosen a very different path to most of the people that I grew up with. My best friend recently had a baby, and he is absolutely gorgeous. He is quite literally like a little cherub angel. He is just so beautiful. And I did always think that if I was going to have a child, it would be around the same time as her, because we're both in our 30s. However, I'm still not ready yet. So I think there will be a bit of an age gap between my future child and hers. So that's the other thing. Like, when I do decide to have a child, I won't have many friends around me that have them. In fact, I will basically just have my best friend. My friends are spread out all over the place in different countries, in different states, and they either don't have kids or they're too far apart from me. So I will be bringing up a child on my own as well, and that does feel quite isolating. My mum has also moved down south, so she's living her best country life, and I won't have her as close by as I would want. So yeah, it's going to be a very big jump in the deep end of a pool I have never swam in before. It's something that I do think about when considering having a baby as well, because your community is so important, and I will want as much support as possible. So it's another thing that I need to factor in for myself. But I'm just not there yet, and that is okay. It is okay for me to not be there yet. To be real with you, I've only recently just started thinking that I would make a great mother. In my 20s, I was chaotic. I had not even touched on any sort of self-development. And quite frankly, I would have trauma dumped on that child. That child would have heard things that they shouldn't be hearing. I know that becoming a mother changes you a lot and you grow very quickly from that experience, but I still don't think I would have been the mother that I could be today back in my 20s. I had undiagnosed ADHD for starters, which is a huge factor. I had unresolved trauma that I went through when I was younger as well. I had not touched on any sort of self-development, any sort of journaling, any sort of anything other than partying and taking drugs, using that as my escapism, right? I had no idea what a regulated nervous system was, which is so imperative to get a hold of prior to having a baby, especially for someone like myself with ADHD. So do I think I would have been a good mother in my 20s? No. Do I think I would have learned very quickly though? Yes. But pair that with a potential of having a shitty father, and I just don't think they would have had a good childhood. When you don't have the best childhood of your own, it's the last thing that you want for your future kid. I also wasn't good with finances, the impulsivity that you have with ADHD and spending. So that's another thing that's a huge factor when having a baby. I've only really just discovered all of these things and started working on them in my 30s. And I've only ever really just felt like it's safe enough to want to be a mother in this relationship. My relationship with Frank has given me the ability to drop into my own healing and feel safe enough to do that. And here's the reason why I feel comfortable thinking about being a mother. It's taken a lot of healing in this relationship to get to this point, and I never would have had that type of support and love in my previous relationships. Okay, so let's talk about the reservations I have around having children, and I guess you could say the anxiety. Let me get really honest with you about this without judgment, okay? I just want to be really raw and transparent with you. I have a list here of the things that worry me. I just want you to hold a safe space for me to do this because it feels really personal opening up about this subject, and maybe my worries resonate with you as well. Maybe you are at a point in your life where you're trying to navigate whether this is something you want to do or not too, and you'll really be able to relate to how I'm feeling. If not, you're probably going to think that I'm crazy. I don't know. Okay, for starters, the girl with the list. If you don't know what that is, it's the girl with the viral list that has all the reasons as to why she doesn't want to have kids and why it scares her. And yes, I have put myself through reading it, and it is absolutely fucking terrifying. The things that I didn't know could go wrong from birthing a child or being pregnant with a child. Yeah, wow, it's scary. I think the other thing with being pregnant is the deep sense of vulnerability that you feel just day to day and out in society, in community. Like, you are vulnerable. You're a vulnerable part of the community once you're pregnant. So that freaks me out, like having to rely on people and being considered like, a weaker part of the community. That freaks me out. It does. It freaks me out. That might not resonate with everybody, but that list that she wrote, bro, look, if you're considering getting pregnant, I probably wouldn't suggest reading that list because you don't need fear injected into you about it if you're considering it. I'm sure you can do your own research about potential things that you're worried about rather than reading this whole big fat. I think there's like hundreds of different reasons as to why, and she just keeps adding to it. It's crazy. But it's also, there's small percentages those things can happen. So it freaked me out. I also worry about breastfeeding in pregnancy, not because of, it not working or anything like that, because at the end of the day, if you can't breastfeed, you go to formula, all right? There's no point shaming mothers about not being able to breastfeed. But the thing that I'm personally scared about when it comes to breastfeeding is the state that my boobs will be in afterwards. Now, that sounds very vain of me to say, but if you've listened to my plastic surgery nightmare, you'll know the trauma that I've gone through when it comes to the amount of breast surgeries I've gone through. I have had 4 boob jobs, so 1 primary and 3 reconstructive breast augmentations, and it is not something that I want to go through again. However, with breastfeeding, it's going to leave my breasts a certain way and probably would require me to get them done again. A fifth boob job is not something that I want to be going through. And I kind of do want to get a little bit more time enjoying the boobs that I have now before pretty much destroying them again. Not everyone will resonate with me on that, but going through the amount of plastic surgery that I've had to because of a particular surgeon's fuck up is not something that I have on my list of things I want to do. I just know that they will be an issue and something that I'll want to change pretty quickly afterwards. So yeah, not something I'm looking forward to, but it's also going to be interesting to see whether I can breastfeed after the amount of surgeries I've had. I wonder and have always wondered if that's something that will get in the way of my ability to breastfeed. So yeah, that's something that I do worry about. Frank and I also both have ADHD. And it is a very high chance that our future child will also struggle with ADHD. And after both of us experiencing a lot of hardship and struggle, again, not something that I really want to pass down to another human. It was a fucking shit way of growing up. Obviously, both of us would have the education and knowledge on being able to recognize it, knowing what to do, where to go, compared to what our parents, didn't know at the time, especially myself being a female. Getting diagnosed when I was younger was like never going to happen. So there's that. Obviously, there's the knowledge, and knowledge is power, but it's something I think about. I don't really want to be passing that down to somebody because it's fucking shit. There's a lot of struggles with it, and going through the school system and all that with ADHD is also not fun. So it's a really big concern for me. On top of that, also being a parent with ADHD and learning how to navigate being able to cope with the overstimulation or the unregulated nervous system whilst also dealing with a screaming, crying baby. I get overstimulated by the cat crying too much when I'm trying to work, okay? He is such a vocal cat. The Maine Coon breed are so... They're so vocal. When I start posting him on social media again, you guys will see what I mean. But oh my gosh, he will just meow to talk, like for the sake of it. So he's in my ear half the time that I'm trying to edit these episodes for you guys. And that pisses me off. I get really overwhelmed with it. So the thought of me trying to juggle work with a baby that's crying as well, I got to be honest with you guys, I'm concerned about how I'll be able to handle that without having a meltdown myself. That's probably going to sound really silly, especially if you're a mother listening to this. Like, I don't know. I'm definitely not here trying to offend anybody. But for me personally, I am scared of feeling totally overwhelmed by that. And I don't know if that makes me sound a bit weak, but I just know what I'm like. I've spoken about it briefly with our psychologist, the one that Frank and I both see. She's got ADHD as well, and she's a mother of two, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, a mother of two. But she did assure me that there's a lot of practices that I can do and things I can learn in order to be able to show up as a good mother with ADHD. So that was comforting, but it is also another level of things that I need to learn prior to having a baby. I was also badly bullied in school. Bullying was something that completely fucking shaped me when I was younger, and there's still triggers from that affect me today, right? And the thought of my future child getting bullied in school and the school doing nothing about it, whoo, that shit enrages me. The thought of that, it really puts me off. It deeply puts me off because that is such a massive trigger for me. And if there are kids that either lay a hand or verbally abuse my future child, I will want fucking justice for that shit, and it needs to stop. There are too many kids that are committing suicide over bullying, and it has gotten even worse from when I was younger. So that freaks me the fuck out. Also dodgy teachers. I am going to say, there's teachers that don't do the right thing when it comes to bringing up our kids as well and teaching our children. So if I have to deal with any of that, God help the school that has our child, because I will be down there so fucking fast and forcing shit to be done. My mum had a real fight with the school I was in, and they really didn't do enough. the thought of my future child having to go through what I did, it's just hard. It's really hard for parents. And it also, freaks me out what other children would expose my child to. If you're trying to keep them away from things like porn and the internet, and then there's these kids that are being allowed to be exposed to that type of thing and they're putting it in front of your child's face, like that shit happens all the time. How are you supposed to control that? It scares me. I listened to a podcast not long ago and they reckon that children as young as 8 years old are being exposed to very aggressive, abusive porn by the age of 8. It's just so hard to be able to fully control the environment that your child is in. This is just things that run through my head. And I just want to say that any parent listening that has experienced the things that I'm talking about, that I'm fearful of, I'm not shaming anybody that is struggling with the things that I'm worried about, is feeling like a shitty parent because of the things that I'm listing. I have absolutely no experience at being a parent. I have absolutely no idea. And I am only coming from like how I would like to do things. The way I want to do things, life might not work out that way. I'm very well aware that you can try and be the best parent or be as planned out with your pregnancy as possible. And life just does throw you curveballs no matter what. So I just want to put that in there. I'm very aware that, the ideas that I have might not be realistic for some people and might not even be realistic for myself. But these are just my thoughts and my upbringing and my experiences that have made me feel this way. Another thing on my list is wanting financial consistency. My partner, Frank, has a really great job. He's in a really awesome position. Any type of social media work is very up and down. You can have a really excellent month and you can then have a couple of shit months. So I personally would really love to be in a more stable financial position where I've got multiple streams of income and I'm not having to feel concerned if one thing is lagging that month. And I would also really love to have hit some solid milestones when it comes to this podcast, because this podcast is my main focus now. And the fact that it's an independent podcast takes a lot more work and energy from me too. I have so much input on how this podcast is running, and a lot of the work that goes into it is also myself. So I'm not walking into a studio recording and then, one of the big houses like Nova or Listener that are doing all the work for me. So this is something that I would like to have really established prior to having a baby, so I can continue showing up on this podcast once I've given birth as well. I would probably have a small amount of time off, but the podcast is something that I always want to show up for. So, I have to make sure I'm in a position to be able to do that too. I would also love for Frank and I to spend a good 8 to 12 months getting our bodies ready for a child. Some people are going to think I'm crazy coming out with that because, again, not entirely realistic, especially if I have fertility issues or Frank has fertility issues. Really, both of us should probably get tested to see where we are at with all of that. But a part of me doesn't want to go and start testing myself because I don't want to have any sort of medical practitioner turn around and tell me like, you better look at the biological clock and start trying to introduce fear into my daily thinking and anxiety. That's not something that I need. And it also would never be beneficial for me to get pregnant with that mindset either. So I have avoided that. And I'm just trying to have faith that if I am supposed to be a mother, I will be, and I will find a way. Another thing that Frank and I have also discussed is the fact that we would be open to adopting. If I wasn't able to, or he wasn't able to, we would be happy with an adoption. That is not for everybody. I understand that, but it's something that I would totally be open to. And I really do believe that coming from the background that I have, family is who you choose and it is not always blood related. I have had blood related family let me down time and time again, and they are not people that I ever considered my family in the end. but I do believe family are who you choose. And I have some friends that I see as literal siblings. So I am totally open to the idea of adopting. And honestly, if Frank and I were absolutely rolling in it or we had won the lotto, I would totally look at adopting like multiple, because I feel like there's so many beautiful kids out there that need a loving home. I would be so open to doing that. And Frank is just so good with kids. I'm not going to lie, watching him be like that has definitely made my ovaries tingle a little bit. Seeing him be so good with kids has lit up a part of me that I didn't know existed. And to make him a father one day would be a really beautiful thing. I would just love to see him have the experience of being a dad. And I never thought that I would feel like that with somebody. But maybe it's a case of finding the right person. If you have always been like me, not keen on the idea of kids, and you kind of feel weird, like, why do I not feel that way? Maybe it's a case of finding the right person that lights you up. Or maybe you just don't want to have kids. There's no right or wrong. And I fully support people being great with kids, but also not wanting to bring up any of their own. Like, it's such a personal choice. And I really believe that it shouldn't be pushed on women the way that it is. I also want to feel really strong before pregnancy. I have a lot of issues with my back since coming off of a horse when I was younger. So for me, getting really strong physically before a pregnancy feels important, and it feels like something that I would really, really like to do. Bearing that amount of weight is going to fuck my back really badly. I really don't want to be physically suffering badly with my back for an entire pregnancy. Like, that does freak me out. I also struggle a lot with fluid retention, which I've spoken about recently in my body image episode that I did last week. And I am so worried that I will suffer with bad fluid retention when I'm pregnant. I do not want to be dealing with literal edema. It's so painful. So that is something that really puts me off. I'm not going to lie. And lastly, I'm really firm on my boundaries with things, and I'm very concerned that friends, family members, whoever it is around my child won't respect the boundaries that I have. For instance, I don't want people kissing my baby. Like, I don't want people kissing my baby. It can cause so many different things to go wrong. It can make them so sick. They can end up in hospital. What if people don't listen to me when I'm saying, I don't want you to do this, and then they do it anyway? Like, I will just be such a helicopter mum with that shit. Like, I just know I will be naturally. And it freaks me out how much of a helicopter mum I would be and how people would listen to me or respect that. The other thing is also the unsolicited advice when you become pregnant and when you have a child. Everybody's fucking opinions of what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be eating, all of this crap. I don't want people's unsolicited advice when I'm pregnant, okay? I don't want to fucking hear it. So you just become vulnerable to that, so susceptible to that shit. As soon as you're pregnant, it's, oh, here we go with everybody's advice or everybody's opinions, especially on the internet. It's hard enough navigating being a mum, especially a first-time mum, without having to deal with everybody's fucking bullshit on top of it. In saying all of that, why does waiting make sense to me? Well, firstly, my mum had me at 40. So she had her first at 20, which is my sister, and then she had me at 40 once she got together with my dad. And I guess because I've been, brought up with a mum that had me later, it's not as scary to me. And I guess I just still have this sense of faith that I will also be okay with my fertility. I could be completely wrong on that. I'll be 35 at the end of this year and I'm not looking at being pregnant yet. So I will be in my later 30s when I look at it. That's just fact. Unless I do have a surprise pregnancy and it's out of my control, I wouldn't be aborting a child if I got pregnant now. That's one thing that I will say 100%. It makes sense if that happens, but I am very careful. We're both very careful. And we would like to be as planned as possible with that. Like I said before, I am a completely different woman now compared to when I was in my 20s. And that is down to me putting in the work, my own self-development, going to a psychologist, doing all different things to work on myself. And I would like to continue working on myself some more before becoming a mum. I would like to continue doing that work on myself. I think it will make me not only a better future parent, but also a better future partner in the way that, Frank and I communicate and navigate things. It just makes sense to me to continue that work right now on ourselves. Breaking the generational cycles that we have both developed from childhood is something that we're both really passionate about too. So having the time to be able to work on that and not cracking under the pressure of, societal norms is really important to me as well. So that's something that we both feel really strong on, and it just makes sense to us. So in the meantime, before having a baby, we are both going to be focusing on our mental health, working on our relationship, making sure that we navigate conflict really well, that we develop our communication even better, because we are both super passionate about making this work in the long term and putting in the work now before adding another element that can create a lot of conflict in relationship, that triggers a lot of old wounds in relationships. So we are focusing on that for ourselves right now, as a couple and as individuals, which feels really empowering to say that we take that so seriously and that we are putting in the work. It's kind of like a dream situation for me. I've never looked for the perfect person, but I have always wanted to be with somebody that has wanted to put in the work to the relationship, to the connection as much as I have. And I have finally found that. So that's a really beautiful foundation for us to be building, potentially creating a family on. Right now, it's really just high focus on getting our careers exactly where we want, getting this podcast exactly where I want. So there's still quite a bit of hustle culture going on there for us. And until that slows down and feels really at a level place, I think that's when we'll feel a lot more ready to dive into being parents. I think we will also start looking into our fertility and facing that, seeing if there's anything that we need to work on prior to trying. I guess knowledge is power when it comes to that stuff. So once we have settled into our new place, that is something that we will start pivoting the needle towards. Hopefully things are all good there. Fingers crossed. Yeah, that's a pretty personal conversation. I will obviously take you guys along the journey with me when I do start looking into that, or if there are things that are becoming challenges. So I will make sure to keep you in the loop so that any of you that are struggling or going through the same type of thing as myself can have that relatability and a safe place of discussion for it. On top of that, just embracing the now. All we have is the present, and worrying too much about the future and letting people's opinions in to affect me, how I feel about myself, developing all this fear and anxiety is just not the way that I want to go about this. It's really important to me that I stay present and enjoy the time that I have now with Frank before having kids, because, I did meet him at 30 and I wish I met him at like 20 and had even more time with him. But right now we just want to focus on us, our cat, our lives, do some travel and enjoy the time that we have right now. I absolutely know and completely acknowledge that everyone's path with motherhood and becoming parents is so, so different. And everything that I'm saying is not the right way. It's just my way. And I just wanted to speak on that and get really personal with you guys, because I've also felt kind of strange at times when I was younger for not being so excited to settle down and have a family with someone. I felt like I was the odd one out when I was younger for not really caring about that type of thing. I've always been very maternal, definitely. Like, I've been told time and time again that I will make an incredible mother. And I've always just been like, oh, nah, look, it's just not for me, mate, until I met Frank. So it's been a real up and down thought process when it comes to the idea of children for me. I really hope that this episode was able to give you some validation in the way that you feel, if you feel the same as me, or you were able to relate to it. I hope to God I haven't offended anybody with what I've said. I know how much of a sensitive topic this is, but I didn't really want to stay silent about this when my path feels so different to a lot of other people in my industry as well. Like, so many people are falling pregnant and a lot of people are probably looking at me and wondering when I'm going to do it. Yeah, it's just something that I wanted to talk to you guys about, and I really hope that you could get something positive out of listening. However you are navigating your journey when it comes to fertility or not wanting to become a mother, whatever it is, I'm sending you so much love. You are doing an incredible job, and please, whatever it is, don't give up on yourself, because you are so loved and you deserve nothing but happiness in this world. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in next week's episode. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please give it a share. You never know who might need a little emotional content in their life. For daily feel-good posts, follow @_emotional content on Instagram and TikTok. And don't forget to hit that follow button so you're notified every time a new episode drops. Your support means the absolute world to me.